Baik, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan untuk kita semua. Good afternoon ladies and gentlemen. I think since we are in Bandung right now, so I will ask with the following word, Sampurasun. Terima kasih bagi yang sudah menjawab Rampes. So Sampurasun is a greeting from Sundanese and it reflects politeness to maintain harmony when we are meeting someone or addressing a group. Sebelumnya izinkan saya untuk memperkenalkan diri terlebih dahulu. Saya Rian Timothy yang akan menjadi Master of Ceremony for today's event. Baiklah yang kami hormati para narasumber, para tamu undangan, serta hadirin sekalian yang berbahagia. Selamat datang dalam acara The Bandung Spirit Reviving Global South Solidarity in a Time of Crisis. Boleh berikan tepuk tangan? Terima kasih tentunya yang sudah memberikan tepuk tangan. Ini merupakan sebuah ruang untuk gagasan yang mempertemukan refleksi sejarah, dinamika global dan harapan masa depan. Hari ini kita berkumpul di sebuah lokasi yang syarat makna historis yaitu Gedung Merdeka Bandung. Ini tempat berlangsungnya, ada yang bisa menjawab? Sudah tahu ya, Konferensi Asia Afrika pada tahun 1955. Di ruang inilah bangsa-bangsa dari kawasan yang kini kita kenal sebagai Global South ini pernah menyuarakan solidaritas, kedaulatan, cita-cita bersama untuk dunia yang lebih adil. So today we gather in a place of historical significance, Merdeka Building in Bandung, the very site of the 1955 Asian African Conference. It was here the nations from what we now call the Global South came together to articulate a shared vision of solidarity and a more just international order. Ini merupakan semangat yang lahir dari tempat ini, sering kita kenal sebagai Bandung Spirit. Ini tidak hanya menjadi catatan sejarah, tetapi juga relevan dalam menjawab tantangan zaman dan situasi global hari ini yang ditandai dengan berbagai krisis, ketimpangan ekonomi, konflik geopolitikal, hingga perubahan iklim. The spirit that is born from this place often known to us as the Bandung Spirit not only becomes a historical record but also continues to be relevant in addressing the challenges of the times and today's global situation marked by various crisis, economic inequality, geopolitical conflicts, and climate change. Melalui acara hari ini kita diajak untuk meninjau kembali posisi dan peran Global South dalam landscape global kontemporer sekaligus merefleksikan bagaimana nilai-nilai solidaritas, kemandirian dan kerjasama yang pernah digaungkan tentunya di Kota Bandung untuk menghadapi krisis global. Through this event, we are invited to revisit the position of role of the Global South in the contemporary global landscape, while reflecting on how the values of solidarity, independence, and cooperation that were once echo in Bandung to face the global crisis. Tentunya acara ini terselenggara atas kolaborasi antara Margin Kiri, Historia.id, penerbit GDN, dan tentunya Megawati Institute yang bersama-sama menghadirkan ruang diskusi yang tidak hanya informatif tetapi juga reflektif dan inspiratif. This event is made possible through the collaboration of Margin Kiri, Historia.id, GDN Publisher, and Megawati Institute who together have created a platform that is not only informative but also reflective and inspired. Dan tentunya acara ini juga broadcast ya melalui Historia live streaming platform. Jadi teman-teman semua yang hadir ada di sini ataupun tidak dapat hadir di sini bisa langsung beritahu rekan-rekan terdekat karena acara ini juga live streaming dari Historia.id. Jadi halo selamat streaming yang mungkin sekarang lagi streaming dari Historia.id. Terima kasih. So bagi hadirin yang tidak dapat hadir langsung saja ya bisa langsung melihat di Historia.id untuk jangkauan diskusi ini dapat melampaui ruang dan waktu. So before the tone of the discussion ahead, we now invite to you to enjoy a special music performance yang tentunya sudah siap sebentar lagi. Silahkan boleh langsung bersiap saja. Our activist and musician who will address social issues and inspire listeners to think critically. Please join with us on the stage, Usman and the Blackstone with Gugun Blue Shelter.
Selamat siang, Sampurasun. Good afternoon, everyone. Vijay Prashad, welcome. Bandung, welcome to Bandung, Vijay. And we're very thankful to be here, to remember not only how our leaders in the past have shown great lessons to have a new world, to have a world without imperialism, without colonialism, but also to remember the role of every actors of society, journalists, activists, and also musicians. So remembering Asia African Conference is also remembering about their roles. So here we are, Usman and the Blackstones, featuring Gugun and the Blue Shelter, and also Rezarian. Please give a round of applause. The first song is dedicated to the survivors of 1965 and all other past human rights abuses who have been having weekly vigil in front of the presidential palace, calling on Indonesian government to bring those perpetrators to justice. Payung hitam, black umbrella, a dark umbrella. Tegakkan payung-payung hitam bukan tanda duka yang kelam. Telah ku tegakkan payung-payung hitam, itu tanda menyala api cinta, jiwa yang tak padam. Bising lalu lalang kemacetan, terik matahari deras, hujan tak padam api cinta, jiwaku yang melawan. Aku diam untuk melawan. Aku diam untuk melawan. Aku diam untuk melawan. Aku diam. Dari Mesir, dalam semangat Bandung, kita mendengar pejuang Theodora Ignacia Gomez yang dikutip oleh Vijay Prashad. Ia memaparkan logika-logika hak-hak kaum perempuan di dalam kerangka pembebasan nasional. Pertama-tama, kaum perempuan harus berjuang bersama laki-laki melawan kolonialisme dan semua sistem penghisapan. Kedua, dan ini adalah salah satu poin paling fundamental, setiap perempuan mesti meyakinkan dirinya sendiri bahwa dia dapat terbebas dan bahwa dia haruslah bebas dan bahwa dia mampu melakukan segala hal yang laki-laki kerjakan di dalam kehidupan sosial serta politik. Dan bahwa perempuan harus berjuang guna meyakinkan laki-laki bahwa secara alamiah dia juga memiliki hak yang sama dengannya. Namun dia juga mesti memahami bahwa problem yang fundamental bukanlah kontradiksi antara perempuan dan laki-laki, melainkan adalah sistem yang di dalamnya kita hidup, sistem yang menindas kolonialisme, imperialisme, dan kapitalisme. Manusia, untuk apa kau di dermaga? Hei manusia, untuk apa kau di istana? Hei berlayarlah, bentangkanlah neraca keadilan. Aku diam untuk melawan. In silence I resist. Aku diam untuk melawan. In noble silence I resist. Aku diam untuk melawan. Aku diam untuk melawan. Aku diam, hidup korban jangan diam. Hidup korban jangan diam. Hidup korban jangan diam. Hidup korban jangan diam. Jangan diam. Jangan diam. Jangan diam. Lawan. Payung hitam. For those survivors, 1965. The second song is about rain. The rain that is no longer rain. If we have Asia-African Conference today, one of the topics must be about how to save our forests. The last 3 remaining forests in Congo, where it was led by Patrice Lumumba. In Amazon, where now we have Lula da Silva. And in Papua, unfortunately, we have nobody. We have no great leaders as we have in the past. Rain. Rain falls heavier through the drought, dark spell. Rain that kills creatures and turns life to hell. Rain is no longer, it's no longer, it's no longer, it's no longer rain. Rain left us to real life to the ends of silence. Rain falls on the while to the end with the same violence. Rain, it's no longer, it's no longer, it's no longer. Rain, it's no longer, it's no longer, it's no longer, it's no longer rain. Asia Revening Conference is about how our great leaders are fighting for the just world, for the better world, for the better civilizations. However, many of our leaders have been killed, have been toppled down. Started from Patrice Lumumba, Jacques, and also Salvador Allende, who was trying to save the forest, who was trying to nationalize all the minings in Chile. And now we have seen a lot of forests being destroyed, being deforested. And I think there's no other way than to resist, and to resist. Rain falls onto real life to the ends of silence. Rain, it's no longer, it's no longer, it's no longer. Rain, it's no longer, it's no longer, it's no longer, it's no longer rain. 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 The third song is Gugun Blue Shelter song about bad politicians. Give a round of applause for Gugun the Blue Shelter, please.
Oke, lagu Bad Politician ini liriknya membuat ya mengingatkan kita untuk betapa bahayanya bad politician ini ya, sebagai pemimpin negara. Okay, this is Bad Politician. Ayo dong, wake up dong.
Wait, come on, wake up, people. Vijay, you're welcome to join us. Bye, you're welcome to join us.
Bad politician walk to their mind with dirty feet. Bad politician walk to their mind with dirty feet. We can't find loyalty. You can predict trustworthy. We can deny solicitation. We can refuse. Who would do anything for money? A bad politician telling lies on honesty. Bad politician, we don't need your existences. You can expect loyalty, you can predict trustworthy. We can deny solicitation, we can refuse. Who would do anything for money? Yeah.
We used to have great and good politicians, but it was all in the past, in our history. We have Sukarno in Indonesia, we have Nehru in India, we have Gamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt. We have a lot of great politicians in the past. But now, look at the world. We have the fascist imperialist Donald Trump. We have a fascist imperialist Benjamin Netanyahu, who have not only disrespecting human rights, but also as brokering the international law and world order. Only one word for them: lawan.
Bad politician, the way you speak, no solution. Bad politician, we don't need your contribution. We don't need your contribution. You can expect loyalty, you can predict trustworthy. We can deny solicitation, we can refuse. We won't do anything for money. Oh. All right.
Gugun, Blue Shelter, Reza
Bad
Yan,
politician.
Klana Halim. Before we play the last song, there's the second last song. Before we play the last song and the second last song, I'm sorry for my English. This is in Bandung. I'm a Sundanese. I should speak in Sundanese. So, there's one important musician, composer, whose name is Sudarnoto. Sudarnoto was a very unique guy, having medical backgrounds, but having a lot of great songs. Unfortunately, his life was being forgotten by the regimes of Suharto. He was being imprisoned. He was being thrown off from his normal life. His great song, including Garuda Pancasila, which we sang almost every day in school, and also many other songs that he won in film festival. One of the great song which we feel quite difficult, like playing a world-class music composed by Sudarnoto, is Asia Afrika Bersatu. So this is the song that we are going to sing now, but we apologize if we play it wrongly. This is difficult, but if you know better than we do, please join the song. This is called Asia Afrika Bersatu. Sorry, I'm sorry, guys. This is a live performance, so excuse us. Please kindly repeat it. Can you please put higher the volume? Okay. bersama, Asia Afrika telah bersatu. Berkibarlah panji kita, ditabur melati bumi pertiwi. Dari gurun Godi Gangga Irawadi Sahara, merdeka hurriyat juang Binzabat, kampun salam hopin pun sesambut salam gembira. Hai merdeka, alam bahagia kini telah tiba. Arahmu berjuang Afro Asia, hantu perang lama kini sudah. Matahari berjaya gemilang, bawa cinta damai merdeka. Bak berserentak bangkit sambut bersama, Asia Afrika telah bersatu. Berkibarlah panji kita, ditabur melati ibu pertiwi. Dari gurun Godi Gangga Irawadi Sahara, berjuang merdeka. Sambut salam hopin bonsu, sambut salam gembira. Hai merdeka, alam bahagia kini telah tiba. Bersatu berjuang Afro Asia, hantu perang kini lemah sudah. Matahari berjaya gemilang, bawa cinta damai merdeka. Bawa cinta damai merdeka. Merdeka. Not bad. One last song. This is for, great people like Munir Said Talib, who has dedicated his life and death for human rights in Indonesia. He was poisoned on board in 2004. Munir. Tak terbayangkan, tak terfikirkan, aku dibentangkan dan dipaksa bungkam. Badai haru langsung menghujam. Aku diarsenkan, bengis komplotan, Ozi diledakkan, semua dialihkan. Langit haru, langit mencekam. Kematian akankah selalu meniadakan kekuasaan, akankah selalu menihiliskan. Aku ada dan berlipat ganda. Aku ada dan berlipat ganda. Aku dibentangkan dan dipaksa bungkam. Badai haru langsung menghujam. Perjuangan tak lekang sampai penghabisan. Aku
ganda. Aku ada dan berlipat ganda. Kita sudah lelah dengan kekerasan. Kita sudah lelah dengan penindasan. Kita sudah lelah. Aku ada dan berlipat ganda. 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 Aku ada dan berlipat ganda.
Thank you, Historia. Thank you, VGB. Thank you, Megawati Institute. Thank you, everyone who hosts this organization, this event, important event. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you Usman and the Blackstone with Gugun Blue Shelter for the meaningful performance. Luar biasa sekali. Dalam sekali ya, deep sekali. Selanjutnya kita akan memasuki sesi pengantar yang akan memberikan landasan awal bagi diskusi kita hari ini, membantu kita membaca ulang tema besar yang telah diangkat serta membuka perspektif tentang relevansi sejarah dan dinamika Global South. Izinkan saya untuk membacakan profil beliau terlebih dahulu yang merupakan Direktur Eksekutif Megawati Institute, juga pengajar di Institut Kesenian Jakarta dan Senior Fellow di Georgetown University SFS Asia Pasifik. Langsung saja, it's such an honor and privilege to introduce Bapak Hilmar Farid. Kami persilakan.
Baik, terima kasih. Selamat siang semuanya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Sampurasun. And good afternoon to all of you. So first of all, welcome to this historic building, Gedung Merdeka, where as you know, the 1955 historic conference took place. And today, we are honored to have Vijay Prashad, one person who tirelessly has been documenting the struggle of the people of the Global South. And yeah, I'd like to thank, first of all, Historia.id, penerbit GDN, and also penerbit Majin Kiri for publishing the translation of his books. The books are sold outside. And of course, special thanks to Usman and the Blackstones. This is a beautiful performance, I think. And it's also an example that art is not simply a decoration. Art is not an entertainment to such events. Art is part and parcel of the movement. Art is the heartbeat of politics. And this is, I think, a very important message that I also want to discuss today. But a bit of context. So why are we having this event today? We know that we are living in a time of crisis. There's no need to go deeper into that. And we can see it like really openly. But normally we would discuss crisis from the perspective of despair, of sorrow, of suffering, which is important, of course. But today we will have a different point of view. We want to look at possibilities, at hope, at struggle. There's no other person, I think, today was better than Vijay Prashad in leading this discussion. He's been an inspiration for all of us. And yeah, of course, 1955, it's like 71 years ago. A lot has changed. New things are coming in, new realities. There was no discussion about climate back then. Now we are all confronting a serious problem with the climate crisis and so on. And I think today's discussion will also try to bridge the inspiration that we took from 1955 and how to translate it into our reality today. So without further ado, Vijay Prashad and Bunga Siagian.
Check. Okay. Hi everyone. Nggak tahu kedengeran nggak? Atau di sini aja? Hi everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming and welcome to Gedung Merdeka, and also for those who join from YouTube. I'm Bunga Siagian. I will be your host and moderator for today's discussion on the Bandung Spirit, a conference that really significant for the history of the third world, a radical spirit that encouraged a lot of new leaders of independent countries to think about a new world, the radical new world. And I think it was also a conference that starting what Samir Amin called as a globalization of struggle that started from 55 to around 80s before the third world project started to declining. I think Vijay elaborated this on his book, A Darker Nation. One of the reasons of the declining of the Bandung spirit was the debt crisis that imposed on them by the global financial institution. So for me, I think as we are talking or discussing this Bandung spirit in the context of crisis, I think we are entering a new phase of the collective consciousness regarding the violent structure and hostile structure of the imperialism that really suffocate our lives today. So within that context, I think Vijay's lectures today will be so important, going back to Bandung conference, because the conference on the Bandung era provide us with not only epistemology, but also important lessons on the strengths and also the weakness of the movement itself. Because revisiting the past, we need to be objectively and accurately, otherwise we will just fall into nostalgia that is dangerous for all of us. So, Vijay, welcome to Bandung.
Thanks a lot.
You can start. Please, the stage is yours.
Thanks very much for inviting me. And if you don't mind, I'll stand up. It's easier for me. I want to thank the Megawati Institute, Historia.id, GDN Press, Margin Kili, all of you for welcoming us to Bandung. It's incredible. I can't tell you what it means for me to be here in this room, where in this room, I mean, it's incredible. I can't tell you what it means for me. It's impossible to convey to you what this means. As a young person in the 1980s, I was there in Delhi at the non-aligned meeting in 1983. Young person assisting, helping out, settle things, water and so on. And that to me was the last gasp of what started here, what started in this room, when representatives of 29 countries plus other guests and observers came and sat here and discussed not the problems of colonialism, not what they had suffered through. They took that for granted. They had already met in Brussels in 1928 to discuss the problems. They came here to seek basic unity so that half the world's people, the peoples of at least Asia and Africa, could gather together, settle their voice, and take their place on the world stage. Because indeed, one of the things that colonialism had done was it had silenced the world's majority. It wasn't just that colonialism stole wealth and took it away. You know, the dramatic thing about colonialism and imperialism was when it happened in the 19th century and the 20th century, it was able to make us work in our own lands, whether it's in the Gold Coast in Africa, from which there was representatives, or it was from India, or it was in Indonesia. They made us work on our land, and then they took the wealth back to their land and used our wealth to enrich them. Not only had they done that, but they also told us that our ideas were not important, that we were not important as contributors to world history. In other words, they made history and we participated in it. But what our leaders from the anti-colonial struggle, whether it's Gamal Abdul Nasser or Jawaharlal Nehru, whether it was Sukarno, the very great Sukarno, whether it was any of them, they understood when they came here that they didn't come here to beg anybody for the world that they wanted to build. They came here to make history. This was where our history begins. When Nehru says that Bandung is the capital of Africa and Asia, what he meant was this room here. This was the capital of Africa and Asia because it was from here that a basic unity was created to build a different kind of world, different kind of global economy, so that our countries, and listen to this carefully, because this is not something from 1955. What I'm going to say now is something that could be in 2026. But they said it in 1955. They said, why should our economies, why should our people dig in the mines of our country, cut down our forests, bring the wealth out of our earth, and allow that wealth to go elsewhere? Why can't we harness our wealth, whether we are mining copper in Chile, later at the non-aligned movement, when that is formed, the question of Latin America is brought in. In Bandung, there was no Latin America. But the copper mines of Chile, whether it's the coal mines of India, or it's the nickel mines of Indonesia, why should our people go into our earth, dig out our minerals and metals, and send the wealth abroad? Why can't we use our wealth to process it in our factories, improve the condition of our people, use the wealth to build infrastructure in our countries? Why can't we build trains? Why do we have to import trains? Why can't we put our people to work with our scientific and technological knowledge? Why do we rely on them for science and technology? Why do we need to import finished products from them? Why can't we make our own toothpaste, for God's sake? Why do we have to import biscuits? Why do we have to import cooking oil? What's wrong with us that we can't produce these things? That was the core of the Bandung message. It's forgotten now. People think Bandung was about peace. It was about economics. If you don't settle the economic question, you can't talk about peace, because your people will always be poor. They will always get angry. They will always want conflict. And in that case, peace is nothing. You can't start with peace. You have to start with bread. You have to start with land. You have to start with clothing, education, healthcare, things like that. That's what they discussed at Bandung. It started with the plain fact that our people, when they go on our land and build our wealth, that wealth should not be drained in a neo-colonial way, in a new colonial way to Europe and the United States. It should be used to improve the conditions of our people. That was the beginning of Bandung. That was the first conversation, the Economic Commission. Completely forgotten. And we don't look at it nostalgically. It's not nostalgia. It's addressing issues today. In Indonesia, today you are still debating what to do with your nickel. Today, 71 years later, it's the same debate. Why haven't you settled it? Why is it taking so long? In India, we have the same debate. Why are we importing technology from abroad? Why aren't Indians who are supposed to be good with computers building computers? Have you ever bought an Indian computer or an Indian phone? No. Why aren't Indians building phones? Huh? Trucks. Okay, you're buying trucks. But they keep saying Indians are good with IT. Bangalore is the Silicon Valley. If it's the Silicon Valley, where are your phones? Where is the Bharat phone? Why is it that there are only Chinese phones and Korean phones? Where's the Indonesian phone? There's a whoosh train. Train goes Bandung to Jakarta. Is it made in Indonesia? Is anything on that train made in Indonesia? Maybe upholstery. Maybe, I don't know. The core question was economic, completely set aside in the years after Bandung. Why? Because they did not allow us to put the new international economic order, a child of the Bandung Conference, a United Nations General Assembly resolution passed by the UN General Assembly in 1974. They did not allow us to build a new economic order. When we tried to move an economic agenda, suddenly somebody came and tapped you on the shoulder. It may be a military officer who said your time is over. It might be the United States. It might be the International Monetary Fund. They tapped you on the shoulder, said it's time to leave. In Brazil, the administration of Juan Goulart, removed 1964. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the administration of Patrice Lumumba, you mentioned him, removed 1961. And you know what happened in Indonesia, 1965. A tap on the shoulder. Sorry, friend, you can't do this. You cannot change the economic structure of the world. The Bandung spirit can only be remembered nostalgically. It cannot be remembered for its core issue, which was sovereignty. We should have the right to speak. We should have the right to have an opinion. United Nations General Assembly, 193 members. United Nations Security Council, 15 members. 5 of them permanent members. No permanent member from Africa. No permanent member from Africa. Africa does not have a permanent seat. No permanent member from Latin America. The whole of Latin America, let's say south of the United States, does not have a seat on the UN Security Council, permanent seat. Among the 5 who are permanent members, 3 of them are former or still colonial powers. United States, Britain. Why is Britain there? It's a tiny island. They barely have a population anymore. Half of London is from South Asia. Why is Britain a permanent member? Why is France a permanent member? Why are there 2 countries from Europe as permanent members in the Security Council? Then there is Russia and China. Okay, fine, very big countries. Why not Indonesia? 4th largest country in the world. Nobody ever talks about Indonesia should be a permanent member in the Security Council. Nobody. Never heard this discussion. They sometimes say India. Sometimes Brazil as the first Latin American country, hence the BRICS. I'll come to that in a minute. We have the right to speak. That was a point made at Bandung. We have a right to speak. And not only to speak, my friends, and here's the important thing, because it's not enough to have the right to speak. You have the right to be heard. You see, there's no point standing on the street and yelling and nobody's listening to you. You have the right to be heard. That's why something like a permanent seat on the Security Council is important. Because the General Assembly can say whatever it wants. We condemn the US illegal blockade of Cuba. Every year, the General Assembly condemns. The General Assembly condemns the genocide against the Palestinians, not only in Gaza, but in the West Bank. Condemn. You can speak all you want there. Nobody hears you. They only hear you if you have power. And power comes on the UN Security Council if you have a permanent seat. Or if you are able to exercise power over the countries that are doing war. Can we exercise power over the United States and Israel to get them to stop this genocide? Grinding on. It's not ended. It's grinding on. The illegal bombardment of Lebanon. Illegal war against Iran. We feel powerless. We can speak all we want, but we are not being heard. Message of Bandung. We don't only have the right to speak, we have a right to be heard, which means our power must be taken seriously. Sukarno says here, we have a moral voice. A moral voice. But I can tell our late Sukarno, moral is not enough. It has to be moral with power. Our voice must come with, it must be rooted institutionally. That was the Bandung first message. Second message linked to that was about economic rights. We have the right over our own raw materials. We have the right. In Iran, 1951, the government of Mohammad Mossadegh says, we will nationalize our oil. British and Dutch oil companies were very angry with Mossadegh. The British threatened, this is interesting, the British threatened for the first time in modern history to close the Strait of Hormuz. The first threat on the Strait of Hormuz does not come from Iran or Oman. It comes from the British oil companies and their government in London. They threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz. Then they overthrew the government of Mohammad Mossadegh. Why? He was exercising the right that 2 years after the coup in Iran is talked about right here. That countries should have the right to control their wealth. Their people go into their land, into their mines, into their forests. In their own way, they decide to use their wealth. That is a matter for them. Not a matter for multinational corporations, which are mainly imperialist corporations. It's not for them to decide. We have a right to speak, we have a right to be heard. We have a right to be heard when we talk about our own wealth. Very important point from Bandung. Also, we have a right to be taken seriously as people. You won't hear us, you won't accept our power if you think of us as savages. Very important discussions here about what was known as racialism. They didn't feel taken seriously. An African delegate from Nigeria at another meeting says, we are treated as veranda boys. We are brought to meetings to listen. We are never allowed to speak. And when we speak, they don't take us seriously because they say that if you are listened to, then the meeting, and this is what John Maynard Keynes said about if Africans and Asians would be invited to Bretton Woods, foundation of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, what John Maynard Keynes said, if you bring them, And if they speak, it will become a monkey house. It will become a monkey house. The monkeys will be going, ooh, ah. They are monkeys. Not only do we not take them seriously to give them the right to speak or be heard, but in fact, they are less than human. So from this venue, the idea was put forward, we must be against racialism. We must demand a humanity. And this is one of the reasons why from Bandung, UNESCO, the UN Economic, Social and Cultural Organization, becomes so important for our work, anti-racialism. One of the first UN institutions that the United States stopped funding is UNESCO. Because UNESCO, for instance, when I was a child, UNESCO helped pay for our textbooks in school so that we would have Indian textbooks written by Indian scholars and not brought from England. So that when I studied literature, I didn't have to read poems that talked about snow in the winter. Because in Calcutta, where I grew up, it didn't snow. For children, it's important they learn about their own context. What is India like? We had to write our own textbooks. This is all a product of here. But you see, we live in a different era now. We live in an era where most of our gains are being slowly taken away from us in a complicated fashion. Yeah, thanks. My voice is always like this. Super misbehaved voice. It's always like this. You know, the thing is, as you get older, everything breaks down. Slowly. Yeah, everything slowly breaks down. But the voice shouldn't go. For people like us, voice and eyesight is everything. Yeah. Has a right to be heard. Yeah. But try to keep it going, you know. Keep going, voice. Anyway, it's okay. We live in a very different time. Our gains are being taken away from us. You know, for instance, we have to try to understand, why is it that Donald Trump is so angry with the word BRICS? He says, if you talk about BRICS, I'll sanction you. I'll put tariffs on you. If you talk about BRICS. He doesn't know the word Bandung. If he knew the word Bandung, he would say it. If he knew about the Bandung spirit, he would talk about it. But instead of saying Bandung, he is saying BRICS. He's saying, I don't like BRICS. I don't want this BRICS to happen. You see, we have to really understand. I'm not going back to say what happened to the Bandung spirit and so on. But we have to understand that that spirit never disappears. That desire for sovereignty, the desire for our forests not to be cut down so that the wealth of the great rainforests goes to feed the wealth of some billionaires somewhere in the world. We have the right, we feel that. This comes from the desire to live in a city where you don't see poor people begging on the street. Nobody likes that, nobody wants that. It hurts us to see the poor, to see inequality the way it is. Yeah, it hurts us. So that Bandung spirit comes out of that feeling. It never dies, really. In our countries, we don't want to see ourselves as, in a sense, having failed to basically touch the hearts of everybody, lift up people from lack of education and so on, basic things. We all feel that. That feeling has never gone away, even in the worst of our times, in the darkest period of our history, recent history. That feeling has always been there. That feeling struck the countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America in the 2000s. It struck us again. It comes back to life. It takes shape in movements. In the 1990s and 2000s,
movements emerged, including in Indonesia, against multinational corporations, against agreements being made by the World Trade Organization, against the Group of 7 countries, anti-globalization movements, movements for water rights, women's rights, rights of indigenous people. These movements emerge. When these movements came, they come with inside them Bandung spirit. They may not use the term, but it's there. Want to see a world without poverty, without hunger and so on. But that spirit couldn't organize itself into a proper political movement. In no country really, in the 2000s, was this popular uprising able to come in and make a progressive government, except in parts of Latin America, where we saw in Venezuela, in Brazil, and so on, governments emerging. In Asia and Africa, they were struggling to move an agenda against the International Monetary Fund, against the large corporations, and so on. We somehow didn't produce the imagination to take that Bandung spirit into the political domain. But by the time the United States went to war against Iraq, illegal war in 2003, and then the global economy began to collapse in 2007, the credit crisis. At that time, this war in Iraq, the collapse of the global economy, mainly in the West, major countries in the southern global south started to think, we have made a big mistake. We have designed our whole economic future with advice from the International Monetary Fund for export-oriented production. But export-oriented production of a certain kind. We will produce goods and services and send it to the markets of Europe and the United States. The last buyer was the Europeans and the United States. But in 2007, with the collapse of those markets, these countries said, we have to rethink what we are doing. And it's as a consequence of that discussion that they meet in 2009, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and create the first BRICS group. You see, BRICS was created not with the full Bandung spirit. BRICS was created pragmatically. How to solve a practical problem. If your market collapses in Europe and the United States, you need new markets. And they took a phrase from the Bandung world. The phrase was South-South cooperation. And they said, we need new markets in the global South. So first, the big countries, Brazil, India, South Africa, and so on, need to start trading with each other. India needs to sell pharmaceuticals, not only to Europe and US, but also Brazil, also China. And slowly, the BRICS grew as a trading bloc to increase South-South cooperation. In the early BRICS meetings, they used to talk about BRICS Cultural Association, BRICS Intellectual Academic. It was a sideshow. The real thing was trade. That was the real thing. But I could see already that there were small glimmers of the Bandung spirit. Meaning the glimmers were that point about we should be allowed to use our wealth the way we want to. And that was being led at that time to some extent by the Chinese. Because the Chinese had done something very clever, which we didn't do, and we should have done. And in retrospect, I really regret that we weren't closely watching what the Chinese were doing. What the Chinese did was very smart. In the 1980s and 1990s, when we were all saying, let's invite foreign direct investment into our countries, let them help us build factories, let's globalize our economy. We built free trade zones, whether it's in India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Bangladesh, etc. Please come, we said to the big corporations. Here's a free trade zone, no environmental laws, not much labor laws. Please come and bring FDI. Because IMF, International Monetary Fund, said, the more FDI you bring, the more your development will happen. That model was completely flawed. The Chinese didn't follow that model. They did something very clever. They said, okay, well, here's the city of Shenzhen. We're going to build a big industrial area. You come from Germany, come Japan, come from France, come here. We have very skilled labor. They are highly educated, they have good health care, they're physically stronger, they eat better. In India, laborers struggle with basic diseases, waterborne diseases, because the water is really not drinkable. China, you don't have these problems. Come. But if you come and use our facilities and our labor, you have to do two things. These are the two things I wish we had followed. We were not watching what they were doing in China. Could have done it in Indonesia. Big wasted opportunity. What did they say? They said, give us the technology. But not only the technology, show us the science. Teach us how you build a computer, but also tell us the science behind it. Because the science will help us build the next technology. They took the science of solar panels from the French. And these French companies, so eager to come into China for the labor, came and basically donated their technology to Chinese companies. That's the first thing they did. Very clever. So Chinese tech starts to expand. Yeah, beyond all of us. Chinese tech companies expand. They can start building solar panels, cell phones, everything. Why? Because they told companies, come. Just like we asked, come into a free trade zone. We never asked, show us the science, technology, you have to tell us. You've got to build an institute of science. We want our young Indonesian children to learn computers, but not how to use the computer, which is what you taught them. You had coaching for how to use the computer, how to consume the computer. But they were teaching them how to build them, how to build computer systems. Very clever. Second clever thing Chinese did. Chinese said, okay, you can come. Set up the company, that's okay. But guess what? The profits you make from sales can't leave China. You have to reinvest it in China. You have to reinvest the profits in China. You can't drain the wealth like a colonial power. Very clever. These companies were so confident of their ambitions to globalize the world that they accepted these two demands coming from the Chinese government. You know, outside people were having debate. Is China capitalist? Is China socialist? They were stuck in a boring debate. Chinese were not interested in this debate. Are you capitalist? Are you socialist? They were interested in two things. Get the science and technology. Number one, make sure the investment stays in the country. Did we do those two things? No. We said, please just come. You don't tell us what you're doing. We'll just make the things and you can take the profits out. Because the IMF is just telling us you need the FDI coming in. IMF didn't say keep capital controls to prevent the money going out. We followed the IMF blindly. They tied a blindfold around our eyes and we forgot the Bandung spirit. But the Chinese were remembering this. Very important lesson. That's why in our institute, now we are following what the Chinese are doing carefully in case they are coming up with some new ideas that we can share around the world. It's not an issue of Chinese are coming in, selling their... The question of Chinese coming in and selling you a whoosh is not a Chinese issue. It's an Indonesia issue. Why aren't you building your own train? It's not a Chinese issue. People say, why are we buying all this from China? Why are Chinese companies coming here? Right? That's not a Chinese question. Question is, where are the Indonesians? What are they doing? Why aren't they taking the initiative to build trains or taking initiative to build other infrastructure, 5G and so on? Why are you bringing in foreign companies? It's a question of why aren't we doing it in our countries? You understand? That's the Bandung spirit. They woke it up. So after the BRICS was created, Chinese created Belt and Road, other initiatives for South-South cooperation. But nobody was talking about our cultural South-South or academic South-South, intellectual South-South, and so on. But we need to, and that's the last point I want to make, we need to expand our imagination for today. For instance, we need a better understanding of how the world system works. It's not multipolar, it's not unipolar. These two terms come from physics. They come from US political science. They're not reflective of reality. United States and Israel savagely bombed Iran. At a girls' school, killed 168 girls. Nobody could say anything. What multipolarity is there? Iran refusing to back down. That means there's no unipolarity either. Iran refusing to surrender. And yet, there is no multipolarity. We need a better understanding of the world system. That's the first issue. We don't even have that today. If we had a Bandung conference, the opening address on the politics of our moment would be inadequate because we don't have an assessment of the world that's accurate. The contours of the world are shifting. What is our theory of those transformations? We need a South-South understanding of the world order seen from places like Bandung. How do we see the world order? What is the relationship of the emerging big countries, Brazil, India, even Indonesia? Why is Indonesia not in the conversation about the emerging political landscape, what we call the churning of the world order, or the new mood in the global south? How do we understand that? The first point on our agenda has to be the intellectual question of how do we understand the world as it is today? Why is it that we cannot stop the genocide against the Palestinians? What is the issue there? Where is the Palestinian leadership today? Who are the Palestinian leaders? Why have we allowed Israel to destroy Palestinian politics? Marwan Barghouti, the leader of the Palestinian people, 24 years in an Israeli prison. 24 years. Just the other day we commemorated, memorialized 24 years of a leading politician, most popular Palestinian politician in jail in Israel, 24 years. Why haven't we fought to get him out of prison? Why haven't our governments, who say we are against the genocide, raised the name of Marwan Barghouti? Why haven't they said, release him as a condition of relations between our countries? We would like you to release him from prison. 24 years he has been illegally held in an Israeli jail. Nobody has said a word from our governments. Why? Our politics needs to be assessed. What is the actual situation of our politics? Not multipolarity, unipolarity. We need a theory desperately. In our institute, that's one of the main lines of work which we should work on together. What is a quote-unquote politics seen from Bandung today, not 55? Today, what is it? How do we assess the world situation? Second, we have to understand what is development today. IMF model has completely failed us. Your country is still chasing foreign direct investment, still begging foreign capital to come in. For what? For at least 2 generations, it's done nothing for people. It's only brought heart sickness. You don't have an agenda for development. India does not have an agenda for development. Pakistan, even less, privatizing the electrical grid. We don't have an agenda for development. We don't understand what development is. Because for us, development has become a word that refers to malls, air-conditioned malls, fancy airports, things like that. We don't think of development as ending hunger, ending homelessness, giving hope to people, millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people. We don't think about that. We are embarrassed about poverty. We think of development as something shiny. Rajiv Gandhi, when he was the Prime Minister of India, walked into a planning commission meeting and in fact said this. He said, I don't want to hear about poverty anymore. I want to hear about malls and airports. I want to hear about malls and airports. Why isn't there a big shiny mall right here in Bandung in this building? Why isn't this a big shiny mall? Why don't we have a Starbucks right here and a Burger King and a something else? That's how we have come to understand development. It's completely upside down. We need a new theory. We need infrastructure in our societies, better infrastructure than we have. We need to invest in infrastructure that helps people. For instance, a country like this, how do you connect people across all the islands? What's the best infrastructure? That needs to be studied. There needs to be a way to use national wealth to build schools everywhere for children which actually teach people, where you build the spirit in young people to become teachers. Yeah, it's not just about paying people higher salaries. You don't have to commodify teachers. You need to inculcate a spirit inside a society. That spirit isn't there in our societies. No young person says, I want to go to the rural area and teach for the rest of my life. They all think I want a job in the city, some flashy job. Yeah, I want to work in this, that, or the other. I'm not thinking of going and becoming a doctor in a rural area. Yeah, you go to a small island like Cuba, where they inculcate the spirit of improving people's lives. People take a medical degree and they go and become local doctors in small communities. They don't feel like their lives are wasted. They feel enriched. They go work in COVID wards in Costa Rica. They feel like their lives are enriched. That feeling of your life being enriched is where hope comes from. That has to come from a spirit in the society. That was the Bandung spirit in that era. Our parents experienced it. We came in the debt crisis spirit. We are children of the debt crisis, Hilmar. I mean, that's a fact. Yeah, we emerged in some of the worst time of world history. Now we are trying to tell young people, please, build a spirit, man. Don't follow our experience as young people. Around us, all countries were surrendering to the International Monetary Fund. You don't have to do it today. We need a new development theory. Why? Different options are there. You don't have to go to the IMF and beg them for money. There are other development banks. You have your own resources in your society. You know, I already mentioned the nickel debate. Why is it taking so long to resolve that debate? There is so much wealth in Indonesia. Fourth largest country in the world. It's not a poor country. It's another rich country with a poor population. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, one of the richest countries in the world, $3 trillion worth of known reserves of minerals and metals. And it has the poorest population in the world. Okay? You just need basic mathematics to know something is wrong. It's the richest country in the world with the poorest population. You don't need to beg multinational corporations to come here. They should be begging you. Remember the Chinese experience. We need a new development theory. We need a new approach to development. We need a new cultural theory. We need a different understanding of culture. There's nothing wrong with having your culture cross-fertilized with other people's cultural experiences. Nothing wrong with that. Rock and roll is amazing. It's amazing. If you like rock and roll, you like rock and roll. You fertilize it with different stories and languages and different instruments and whatever. Culture is not boxed by national territory. It must breathe. But we need a new understanding of that. We can't allow one section of the elites to promote so-called globalized culture and another section to promote so-called ancient culture. Both of them are wrong. Both of them are cheating us of the right to be deeply cultural as people, to draw on our own needs and experiences, to build our own cultural landscape. You're right, culture is not a decoration. It's where we dream. It's where we have the hopes for the future. It's where the spirit arises. But we need to have a new understanding even of that culture. We don't have it. We don't have it. Finally, the issue of confidence. You know, you sing a song called Bad Politicians. Yeah, bad politicians, fine. In fact, the question is, are they bad or do they represent a people who are not feeling confident? You know, I was joking earlier saying, I want to teach a course in a university called How to Be Corrupt. Teach people how to be corrupt. Because if you ask me, what should I study in university? Should I study geography or mathematics or whatever? I would say just take a master's degree in corruption. I would like to teach a master's degree in corruption. People don't have confidence in their world. If you don't have confidence in your world, you end up having a blasé attitude to politics, electoral politics. People are not interested in voting. Most countries, the rates of participation are very low. If they go, they vote, come back. Who did you vote for? I forgot. I looked at the ballot, I forgot. I chose somebody. They had a good ad. Can't remember. No interest at all. People who represent them are detached from them. They are in air-conditioned cars. They are busy because they took a degree from me in how to be corrupt. They're stealing money here and there. You don't even have to steal money. People come and they leave gifts in your office. Yeah, that's part of the course. How to accept a gift. If somebody gives you cash, you always tell them, please, in an envelope. Don't give it like that. It's vulgar. Or in my numbered account. That's what I teach in my class, how to be corrupt. Strategies for being corrupt. How to indicate what the level of the bribe should be and so on. That's a reflection of a lack of confidence in people. I don't blame the politicians. The politicians are a symptom of our lack of confidence in our capacity to make history. We are easy to anger, but we are not able to, as a people, claim power. As a people, we are much more prone to be angry about things. But we don't seem to have, as yet, the confidence to say, it is mine. It is mine. We get mobilized into anti-corruption campaigns, but those are very mysterious campaigns because they are often about this politician, that politician, when in fact the whole system is corrupt. The whole system is corrupt. And it's not the internal system. It's the whole global system. Big multinational corporations come to countries like Indonesia and they will say, we'll do a mining contract, we'll pay your family member X amount of money, we'll have a slush fund here for your political party. I mean, this is institutionalized corruption at the very high level. This doesn't get reported. Some petty politician takes an envelope of cash, that gets reported. But the most corrupt institutions in our world are the big multinational corporations. They have systematized corruption. It is entirely structural. Bad politicians, yes, but it's a bad structure. And it has left people without confidence. That's why we always say in our institute, it's confidence and clarity among people. The most important learnings is to learn how to clearly understand our problems. Clarity. Clearly, sharply understand our problems. And then be confident to transform the world. You have to be confident. It is you who repose confidence then in your leadership. Not in a leadership that comes from elsewhere. In your leadership. You have to make sure your leadership is working for you and not for a multinational corporation or for some other interest. They have to be accountable. Their accountability increases your confidence. So it's true, bad politician, but also bad us. Why don't we have the confidence to put forward our people so that they are accountable to us?
and they act for us, and they pay the price for us, because they pay the price. I'm telling you, we know from our own histories. They pay the price. When our politicians are accountable to us, they pay the price. They get killed. They disappear. They go to jail. They pay a price. But that's only because they remain accountable to us. Politicians who do not remain accountable to us don't pay the price. They sell us down the river, and we lose confidence in the whole system. Our confidence is absolutely vital. I want to remind you as I end of that line I said from Sukarno, who spoke it here. He said that the Bandung spirit is a moral force. It could be that our adversaries have nuclear bombs and ships that have planes on them, aircraft carriers. They have planes that can bomb anywhere. It could be. But he said, we who are here, we are a moral force. We have moral authority. We have moral power. And I will say, my friends, take that line from Sukarno. And remember, he's not talking about the 29 heads of government that came here. He's not saying, Nehru, you, Muhammad Ali. He's not saying you have moral authority. He's saying you represent with accountability hundreds of millions of people. And because those hundreds of millions of people repose their trust in you, it is the moral authority of hundreds of millions of people that gives us the right to stand up against an atom bomb. Today we don't feel that strength. But we have that strength. We need to reclaim that moral authority. Not individually, but collectively. That means we have to rekindle our confidence. We have to rebuild our sense of together around projects that we believe in, development theories we believe in, politics we believe in. We have to build large mass structures with confidence that builds leadership accountable to us. And then we'll be able to turn to those who have atom bombs and say, we don't accept your tariff demands, or we don't allow your planes to fly over our territory. We are proud people. We will not kneel before you. We are like the Iranians. We would prefer to die than surrender. We would prefer to die than surrender. We would prefer to die than surrender. Wasn't that the slogan of 1948? Wasn't the slogan in Indonesia, Merdeka, we want independence or death? We would prefer to die than surrender. Merdeka, we would prefer to die than surrender. We would prefer to die than surrender. Thanks a lot.
Check. Wow. Thank you, Vijay. I'm also happy that you explained about the Bandung spirit back to the core essence, which was the economic cooperation, try to change the material condition of the third world, which is, it was a pretty, the core context of the third worldism itself, right? The perpetual questions about how to deal with their resource, how to govern their new government, and how to, what are they going to do after defeating the colonial rules. So the question of development that you just mentioned is pretty related with the concept of sovereignty, the genuine sovereignty, whether the nation will be built going to the new kind of exploitation, like a national operation and neo-colonial extraction, or they could gain what's so-called sovereignty. I would love to jump to the new research by Tricontinental on hyper-imperialism, because you try to categorize countries based on their effort to be sovereign. And it's really interesting to speak about Iran in this context, because whenever why I go to Iran, because you categorize Iran as one of the countries that strongly seeking sovereignty. I mean, it's on the top. So that's why. But whenever we speak about Iran, all this Western propaganda try to bring back all this discussion about, yeah, but they oppress their own people. All this is Islamic authoritarian regime. So there's a lot of contradiction. And how to deal with that? Because for me, it's really ridiculous to think that Iran choose that kind of form of governance because they just want to choose that form. It's a result of decades of sanctions, it's decades of restriction on their economic activities, decades of threats, and so they didn't choose that form of governance. So the question will be, because we have been speaking about the sovereignty in terms of how to develop our nation, our countries. But at the same time, you have to fight against like a big structure of this imperialism. But it's also important to deal with this contradiction. I think it will be important to share your perspective on that, because you always mention about that, and it's not easy to deal with for us, because it's difficult task, to explain about that, and you have to sometimes, they force you to take stands, whether you choose Iran or choose the peoples of Iran that being oppressed by the government. I don't want to be choose that in between that position. So I think it will be important for you to speak about that.
Firstly, Iran is an incredible country, civilization. They have a history, 2,600 some years of civilization, back to the Achaemenid Empire, when Cyrus the Great unified the country. I mean, they have a very great sense of their history. You talk to Iranians, their history begins 2,600 years ago. Islam comes to Iran, sure, around the 9th, 10th century. But the current form of Shiism only comes to Iran in the 17th century, in the Safavid Empire. So Iran's unity, what unites the Iranian people, goes back thousands of years. So when somebody like Trump, who's completely ignorant, he's ignorant of Iran, ignorant of world history, he doesn't understand. Very many people in the West don't understand Iran. They don't understand what it means to have thousands of years of history, especially in the United States. He's saying, oh, it's a Islamic dictatorship or whatever it is. It doesn't make sense to the Iranian people. They have a great love for their country. Even if people don't like the government, they don't want it to be bombed savagely. You think they want 168 schoolgirls to be killed? That's what it means when the United States bombs a country. We saw it in Iraq. We are seeing it in Iran. Why would it have been any different? First day of the bombardment, they killed those girls. First day. Okay, don't forget that. It's important. So, the Iranian people themselves, they have a right to be critical, form governments. Governments are themselves going to do crazy things. They are fighting the government, they are not. It doesn't matter to the United States. Why should the United States get involved? See, then, why is the United States not bombing Saudi Arabia? Or why is the United States not bombing all the other allies that are monarchies? Yeah, in Europe, most European countries, by the way, Netherlands, that colonized Indonesia, still has a king. What do you got a king for? Yeah, you don't have a king in Indonesia. I mean, there are some small kingdom type places, but you don't have the Indonesian king. Yeah? Why are they not upset about that? So they said, oh, you killed people last year. But who are these people? Most of them were protesting because of the inflation. They were not out on the streets saying, remove the government. Some were, and they were destroying property, whatever. There were clashes. Listen, In India, there are protests, people die. But we don't want the US to come and bomb India. In Indonesia, there are protests, people die. You don't want United States to come and bomb or Australia to come and bomb. So they are talking about two different things. When they separate the people from the government, they are not doing it for democratic purposes. They are doing it for purposes of justifying violence. What do we want? We want to say, we support the long-term process of a people and their government to solve their problems. If increasingly people in Iran feel like this government isn't solving their problems, they will deal with it. People of Indonesia dealt with their own problems. You had your own problems. Students came and said, I don't like this. Yeah? Now it's going in zigs and zags. History doesn't move in a straight line. You have reversals. Then you advance. You have to always seek advances. Don't get demoralized by reversals. But can't get influenced by the US propaganda about the people are against the government. Because this is hard to measure. It's there in no country. People are divided. And we never welcome bombers to come and kill our children.
Yes, it is really interesting that Western has been trying to teach us about democracy, but don't really care about what is sovereignty means for us in the third world. Okay, I don't want to take so much time for my question. We are inviting audience in this room to whether to give a comment, remarks, or questions that feel fruitful for our discussion, but be mindful with the time, as we don't have so much time, but we have so many people here. Okay, maybe three questions first. Can you raise your hands? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Someone help us. Okay, who's going to help with the mic?
It'll be like a talk show. I will come with the mic, put it in your face. No, I'll got it. Huh?
Thank you. May I introduce myself? My name is Elgi. My full name is Rendra Elgiawan, and you can also call me Elgi. I'm from Asian African Reading Club, and also active in Friends of Asia Africa Museum, or we call SMKA. I want to ask to you about what is behind the motive on you wrote about the books behind of the 1955 Asia Africa Conference. What is your motive behind you wrote the book? That's it. Thank you so much, Mr. Vijay.
Test. Thank you, Vijay, for the very interesting society proposal. I think the spirit of the meeting, as my dear friend, Hilmar Farid, is try to see what is the potential for us to move forward. So I will use my right to speak and to be heard from you. I think when we look at carefully what is happening, I think most of multilateral organization was not designed as the absolute governance. So that's why now we are moving to the destroying multilateralism and pushing the what you call unilateralism. I used to work as the climate change negotiator in the UNFCCC. If you read carefully, actually for me, for example, as part of the people with disabilities, now we have globally 1.5 billion, more than 1.5 billion people, including elderly. In Indonesia itself is 50 million or something. Even when I first came here, 71 years celebrations, I have a difficulty to get access to this place. So this is my reflection. Even when we are talking about the 1.5 degrees of climate change, I have a difficulty with my wheelchairs with 1.5 centimeters. So that's why I would like to propose three things, and I would like to ask you your comment. First, if you look at on the multilateral scheme, perhaps there's no chance, even if you speak loud and so on, because the UN was not designed even to accommodate the interests of developing countries. So that's why could cities across Asia, Africa begin to unite more deliberately, starting from Bandung? So for example, I imagine that the headquarters of Asia Africa is in Bandung. So we are not talking only a spirit, but in real, we need to establish the headquarters. Because in New York, symbolically, you cannot use as a moral guidance. At this moment, we just have two countries, right? Iran and Vatican as the moral compass for us. So that's the first question. The second question, if we are serious, and I hope today we are very, very serious, let's establish more what you call concrete. So I spoke with the mayor. The name is the same with me, Farhan. So I asked him to mobilize. Let's start with the city talking point, because now we have 3,500 cities. We can be united and start building, as you mentioned, for agenda, politics and economic and so on. And lastly, as the populations of Asia, Africa at this moment, I think 4 billion or something, or 6 billion something, and 1 billion is person with disability and elderly. So I'm hoping we can develop, so we use in Indonesia, DILANS, disability and lanjut usia, this is elderly, person with disability and elderly. Let's start also to think DILANS Asia, Africa. So let's organize 1 billion people to directly and discuss in terms of science, access to technology, and so on and so forth. I think that's my last point. I use my right to ask to you.
Halo, perkenalkan, introducing Rafki Sadikin dari CC Media. Tapi bukan CC sebagai CC ya. Jadi I write this because if not, the English was gonna be So the first anti-colonial act is to revolt and to refuse obedience. Is that what you wrote on the book? But the first effective steps is usually something deeper. Is to organize that, Bapak before says that about the organize. But then, in Indonesia, we have the practice of organization that actually not very well. You know, in 65, the most revolutionary party is banned. The ideology is banned too. We cannot think about that. We cannot speak about it. We cannot educate people with that. Unless you go to Buru Island at that day, we know we're gonna be terrorized in the WhatsApp, and our mother would be so much worried. And then this is our challenge today also. How we organize in a very concrete way, and to build the organize the people with some of the practice of history also. We have a capable and rooted leadership, the lack of rooted leadership, because in the 1990s, Indonesia have the revolutionary party that doesn't go so well with the time, and many of them cadres now, many of their people, comrades, become the system that we failed people in Indonesia today. They become one with the system. And also, unity that remains limited to technical matters, and also with the short of times. In practice, we have 2019 people protests of anti-corruption organization, and end up with the traumatic experience. This also the last August of 2025. We have revolt, we rage, we anger with the system. But then, because there's no organization with it, it becomes just a fear now. And you know, there's a lot of burn inside our heart. But what is the best practice that you, Mr. Vijay, have knowledge within the countries? What is the best option to organize within this condition? Or maybe we have shares of the objective conditions together, or maybe with the sum of the form, maybe something else. Because the best question of this anti-colonial situation is what is to be done. I think it's that, because that's from other friend. Thank you.
I mean, they are all excellent observations, and I would say that first, the issue of, why one does things is always very complicated. Personally, I felt that the absence of conversation about the beginning of this phase of our history, this phase being Bandung onward, the absence of this in the conversation in the 1980s and 90s meant that we didn't even know our own recent history. You know, in a city like New Delhi, there'll be streets named Sukarno, Tito, and so on. People didn't even know why are they named after these foreign leaders. Who are they? No idea. Yeah? I mean, what is non-aligned? Sounds like a ridiculous idea. You know, nobody taught the importance of this recent history. So my interest is, when I went back and wrote The Darker Nations, which has a much better title in Indonesian, Bangsa Bangsa Kulit Berwarna, a much better title, and it keeps going on. Yeah, much better title. The idea was to bring back conversations about that so we can have conversations about now, not to return to that. So the organizational question, to go there, is so important, vital. Every country is different. You have to build your own structure within your own history. For instance, your history is unique. You said it. Organizations banned, ideas banned, and so on. But you know what can't be banned? Are the contradictions. They continue to exist. You still have a society that formally says we are a nation. And in a nation, formally we are supposed to all be equal.
and yet people are not equal. That fundamental contradiction is the beginning of all our politics. You don't need to be teaching the theory immediately. You have to be teaching the contradictions. You have to teach people in a political education school about what is spontaneity. Why do people rise up in cycles, 2019, 2025, spontaneously? People rise up. Why? Because the contradictions can't be resolved. They don't get water in their homes. There is a 1.5 centimeter problem if you're in a wheelchair trying to enter a building. Those are contradictions that are not being resolved. You can talk to as many mayors as you want. They are not resolving the contradiction. So people spontaneously have uprisings. But spontaneous uprisings like Egypt or like Bangladesh or like Nepal lead to what? To nothing. Bangladesh right-wing government currently, child of so-called spontaneous Gen Z, leads to a right-wing government in Bangladesh and in Nepal. Spontaneity has its limitations. The third concept, organization. What is the importance of organization? It's about building popular power. There's no law that says you can't associate with other people. You can build associations. What's happened in our society is because of the crackdown on organization, the only organized forces are religious. The only organized forces are religious. Difficult to crack down on the organization of the mosque or the temple or the church, Pentecostal church, Latin America. Yeah? You can't crack down on that part of social organization. The rest of social organization is cracked down upon. Social movements, NGOs, cultural organizations, people go to jail. So what happens is that the working class increasingly becomes influenced by religious organizations. They are organized. Our organizations are banned. You want to set up a sports club? That's okay. Maybe we should set up sports clubs. Yesterday at the event in the bookshop, sports club people came, fans. Yeah. You got to find ways to organize in your society. We have to be creative. Reading groups. Yeah, in Tricontinental we encourage reading circles. We are just reading books together. You want to ban those? Ban them. You can ban writers. It's harder to ban readers. It's harder to ban people who meet in their homes and talk about ideas. Organization, the third concept. Fourth concept, which is very important in my opinion, battle of ideas and battle of emotions. We battle ideas all the time. You mentioned WhatsApp groups. You make a list of issues. You know, the concrete. Make a list of issues. You enter a battle of ideas with other people. You enter a battle of ideas. This is what we believe should be done in a city. Whether you organize cities, you organize, whatever you organize, you're going to enter into disputes. We have to learn how to have battle of ideas. We don't teach each other. We have ridiculous debates on X and in WhatsApp groups. People yelling at each other and so on. We have to learn to have the battle of ideas. A battle of ideas does not require tanks. It requires respect for other people's ideas. It requires trying to win people over to your project with dignity and respect, not by humiliation. And the battle of emotions. You see, when you say disability, elderly 1.5 billion, that's already entered the battle of emotions. It's entered us physically. We will now think about it. Yeah, we can say the largest country in the world is the country of the disabled. If the disabled lived in one country, it would be the largest country in the world. That's the battle of emotions. Suddenly, it changes your opinion of an issue. We have to enter the battle of emotions, not just the battle of ideas. And finally, the future. Next month, our institute will publish a dossier called The Future. It's our 100th dossier. It's our monthly publication. This one was the 87th dossier. You can get it online. It's called the Bandung Spirit. Yeah, the 87th. The 100th one is called The Future. Do you believe in the future? We are asking people the question. Because under capitalism, there is no future. There is only permanence. Today, tomorrow, day after, that's the calendar. But every day is like yesterday. You wake up, you go to work, you come back, you're distressed, you're waiting to retire. You can't really take a holiday. You're waiting to retire, but there's no retirement. As you get older, you have to keep working. You don't have savings. There's no future. No personal future, no humanity future. Last concept, we have to build the future. And in that concept, you can't leave 1.5 billion people out. Just because somebody can't see the way I do doesn't mean they don't have a right to the future or a present or even a past. Where is the education they are getting? What books are available in Braille? What books are available to listen to? Technology is increasing access. But are we building the technology for it? When I was in China, I put on a pair of earphones. I was walking around Shanghai with these earphones in, one ear. It's a translator, AI translator. People are talking Chinese, it was translating in my ear. Imagine that. But it's also terrible, you don't feel like you need to learn the language. But imagine I'm sitting here, you speak to me in Bhasha and I listen in my ear. And you just have it in your ear and I speak and it translates. Access can improve. We have to welcome these things. But let me tell you, technology doesn't liberate us. It can be used to oppress us. We have to control what is done with technology. It itself is not neutral. Yeah, but it's not our enemy. It's just technology. We have to democratize the kind of technology that's being built. You want technology that emancipates, not technology that suffocates.
Okay, we only have 15 minutes left before we have to close this lecture. So I will give a chance for two, women. Another one, yes.
Good afternoon. Sampurasun. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mr. Vijay and Bunga. Let me introduce myself. My name is Angie. I'm the member of the parliament in Bandung Regency. And I also am from the Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggle. And I'm also the member of the Bandung Spirit community based in France. I would like to ask a couple of questions. What was the context at that time that enabled Indonesia, despite being a newly independent country in 1955, to confidently host the Bandung Conference amid the political and military tension of the Cold War between the Western and Eastern blocs? And also, considering that during the era of Sukarno and Muhammad Hatta, Indonesia played a central role in the dynamics and movement of nations in the global south, and given the end of the Cold War, as well as the increasingly assertive military and geopolitical ambition of the United States under now President. What role can and should the Indonesian nation play, and how to make our country more into the conscious country? Thank you.
Hey, Vijay, thank you so much. My name is Arkan. I have two questions. The first one would be, so I remember the first time I saw you was in 2021. You came to one of the talks and then you were talking about the progressive movement in Kerala, which I think was very impressive, and that still resonates to me until now. And yeah, I think I would just like to thank you for bringing, you were so influential in my my teenage years. I grew up reading the Red Star Over the Third World, which was still one of my favorite literature work. And my second, that was not a question actually, that was just appreciation, thank you so much. And the second one would be, I was very interested in your anecdotal observation on when you were running Whoosh, and it was, none of them are from Indonesia, but the next points you talked about was about the importance of South-South collaboration as well as the BRICS movement. So my question would be, how would you envision this version of economic in which we still, resource our economy from our country, which also still maintains that South-South collaboration? Because you mentioned that we have to envision how do we maintain our nickel, how to maintain our resources, but then you talk about, your trains don't have anything from your country, but in fact those are from the Chinese companies, which you also talk so highly about in that. So I was so intrigued on what would be the sweet balance between, resourcing our own economy and having our own resources while still collaborating with, this different movement dependent from the existing economic world order. So I think that would be my question. Thank you.
Lovely, both amazing questions. Let me wind around both questions. So, it is incredible that from 1920, roughly in the 1920s, till 1965, Indonesia was in the global conversation. It's in fact before Sukarno and Muhammad Hatta. It's Tan Malaka as well. Tan Malaka takes the story of the struggles in Indonesia to Moscow, into the Communist International. Tan Malaka plays an important role. However you may see him today, he plays a very vital role in taking the story of what's happening in these islands and taking it into the international debates about emancipation. What should emancipation be here? But it's really Hatta and Sukarno in 1928 at the League Against Imperialism meeting in Brussels. They go there and they meet everybody. When Sukarno starts his speech here, he says, many of us met in 1928 in Brussels. And in Brussels at the League Against Imperialism, we made a pledge that we would stay together and fight together. It's because of that connection Sukarno had with Nehru in Brussels when they were both young, that in 1947, India organized the Asian Relations Conference. And the India just getting its independence, organized a big conference. The main theme of the conference was against the Dutch coming back to Indonesia and saying freedom for Indonesia. That was the theme of the Delhi conference of 1947. It's from Delhi that they start meeting in Colombo, talking about having an Afro-Asian conference, and they decide we will hold it in Indonesia. Indonesia was part of the international debate around emancipation until 1965. Then from 1965 to the end of the 1990s, Indonesia is taken out of that debate. And it's taken out partly because of the bannings, the killings, the etc. Taken out of the debate. And actually hasn't returned. Hasn't really returned in its own terms. You see, Indonesia is the fourth largest country in the world. It's not part of the debate and discussion. That's one of the reasons why I'm so interested in interacting with you, so that we can sort of strategize and think how to bring Indonesia back into the global conversation about emancipation. It's not just about talking about this struggle happening here against a multinational, that struggle happening there. Those are negative news. We are fighting against this, we are fighting against that, some forest is being cut down. Negative news. What are you doing to struggle for emancipation and how are you contributing to that globally? What is happening in Indonesia regarding Gaza? How do we talk about that globally? How do we bring Indonesia back into the conversation? Which Indonesian intellectuals are writing and representing the views of mass movements? How do we bring their work into the global conversation? That's what internationalizing will mean. That's what bringing it into the conversation will mean. That's how we bring Indonesia back into the discussion. And that's vital as far as I'm concerned. It's vital. You've got to have it back in the conversation. Obviously, there are contradictions. Obviously, you don't want to go from dependence on European and US capital to then being dependent on Chinese or Indian capital. Why would you want that? You just change the flag of where the capital is coming from. That's not what anybody is talking about. Even the Chinese are not interested in making Indonesia dependent on Chinese capital. They also want African countries, Asian, to industrialize. In the last few Africa-China forums, they talked about industrialization of Africa. Not Africa continuing to sell raw materials. Yeah, when Indonesia puts the nickel question on the table, it's not like Beijing was complaining. They, in fact, want you to process the nickel. It's a big problem for China to recycle its surplus. They would prefer that its surplus wasn't so big, was not so large. So there is, in that sense, no contradiction in the development possibilities. There's a contradiction here. Here you are not broken with the idea that we should sell our raw materials and import the train. Here you got to break that thinking. You got to say we are capable of building our own trains. We are capable of processing our own raw materials. Nobody in the South-South world will necessarily object. That's part of the new development imaginary. Develop it yourself. Build your own factories. Make sure your factories aren't built in a highly exploitative way. Yeah, we are not beyond the capitalist system yet. But make sure that they are not beating workers and whatnot, giving long hours, humane forms of doing. We have to fight for some reforms. I mean, we are so behind the curve, even in terms of liberalism. People believing that people have a right to drinking water. We are so behind the curve. We are fighting for basic human dignity. 1.5 centimeters. Basic human dignity. That's where we are. Then we start a debate about socialism. We're not debating that right now, sorry. We are debating something else. We are debating basic human dignity. Whether a country has a right to process its own wealth in the way it wants to and so on. That's what's on the agenda. Let's stay on the agenda. What divides people of the left and progressives is they jump beyond the current agenda and start debating the agenda that will come in 10 years. And then they divide themselves and meanwhile the right is united. Welcome to the world. Stay on the agenda now. I dream of a socialist world, but I'm not an idiot. I also live in the world as it is. I want to stay on the agenda now. I want to push the agenda towards the final goal, the final aim. But the final aim is not to be debated now. It comes later. Now you have to worry about why is there poverty in Indonesia? Why are there poor people in Bandung? Worry about that now. Can't build socialism in the future if you don't commit yourself to ending poverty now. Ending poverty now within the system we have. They did it in Kerala last year. They ended absolute poverty. They did it in China a few years. You can do it in Indonesia. Commit yourselves to ending absolute poverty. Commit yourself to building a decent country. Nothing wrong with that commitment. That commitment is the first step to building socialism. you commit yourself to decency and dignity, and you achieve that, you've gone a long way. It's a lot better than what we have now. It's a lot better than what we have now. It's a lot better. Thanks a lot.
Okay, it was the last question. We are running out of time now. Vijay, thank you for the lecture, and it was a really important closing statement from you. It's now our job to think about how to move forward, how to solve the contradictions, how to create south-to-south cooperation, whether in cultural, economic, or political, how to bring back also internationalism. And yeah, this long homework for all of us here. Again, give applause to Vijay.
Thanks a lot.
And for all of us here. We have to close this session, but we will continue with the next agenda, which is book signing. So prepare your books. And I think it will be done here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Today's conversation reminds us that the questions of the Global South are not merely historical concerns, but remain deeply present in today's global crisis, while also opening up possibility for renewed solidarity, cooperation, and more equal politic imagination. We have now reached the end of today's program. On behalf of the organizers, we would like to giving a gratitude to all who have contributed to this event. So thank you to our keynote speaker Vijay Prashad and our moderator Bunga Siagian for the insight and perspective. And also thank you Pak Hilmar Farid for the enriching historical framing that grounded in our discussion. We are also extend our appreciation to the musical performance Usman and the Blackstone with Gugun Blue Shelter. Luar biasa sekali for setting the tone, the event with remarkable opening performance. To all participants and to who joining us via Historia live streaming, thank you for your attention and your engagement. Last but not least, thank you for the organizers, Margin Kiri, Historia.id, GDN publisher, and Megawati Institute for making this event possible through their collaboration and dedication. So, information about book signing, it will be held behind there, over there. So you can prepare yourself to book signing session. For coordination, please contact the person in charge, Ayu Alifah Jonas. Once again, for coordination, please contact the person in charge, Ayu Alifah Jonas. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you and we hope to see you again at future occasion. Bye.